Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Conscious Grief series. I am joined by Hélène Stelian today. Welcome, Hélène.
Thank you.
It's so nice to have you here. And Hélène is a midlife mentor with a passion for facilitating development in women of 40 plus. So we met at the first series, Conscious Grief series, which you had watched, and we connected.
Yeah.
And I felt like this is such a interesting looking at grief from the age of sort of aging, as our life changes, as our identity changes. And when we talked about, speaking on this series, I know that you wanted to focus in on regret.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking, what made you sort of want to focus on regret specifically?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, as you said, I work with women 40 and beyond. So I'm very entrenched in the work around midlife. And in my work with women, regret comes up a ton. And research shows that it's really a universal experience, right? I think it's been called the most common negative emotion. We all have regrets. It's part of being human. It's part of being fallible. It's really an inevitable part of our journey. So, and then I think about the book, The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying by Bronnie Ware, the palliative nurse. Have you heard of that? Yeah. So it's no wonder it's been a bestseller. It's quoted in endless articles on the subject, of death and dying and aging. And I find that in midlife, many of us are starting to ask some big questions, maybe questions we asked in our youth that we're coming back to, like, who am I today? What's the meaning of my life? What do I want for myself in the second half? So that's why I liken it to a second adolescence, because I feel like that's the kind of, existential crisis that we may have gone through as we formed our identities as adolescents that we kind of come back to in midlife. It's a time to take stock, to look back on our lives so far. And in so doing and looking back, many of us are going to come face to face with regrets of the past. So I feel like it's really important for us to face these regrets, not only for our peace of mind, but honestly for our well-being. There's a lot of research that suggests that living with intense regret can be very harmful. I mean, repetitive, negative thoughts about our past decisions can lead to chronic stress and even depression. So healing from the grief of regret is critical and conscious work that we all need to do for ourselves. And it is really challenging, but I find it's critical. And we are certainly going to be tempted to avoid this work, right? But I'm going to urge everybody who's listening today to tackle these regrets instead. And that's really why I wanted to talk about regret as part of your amazing Conscious Grief series.
Thank you for that. And I was thinking, but what are the kinds of regrets do you see from women in their middle years?
So the studies on regret among adults in midlife identify the most common regrets around education, work, marriage, children and family, money, and health. So it's kind of a whole bunch of everything, right? And this is the really interesting piece for me, is that there's some evidence that we regret things we didn't do more than the things we did do. So I was listening to a really interesting interview with a researcher and psychology professor, Amy Somerville, who runs the Regret Lab at Miami University in Ohio. And she explained that while we may regret things we do in the moment, it's the things we didn't do that stay with us, that nag at us. She says that goals we did not pursue or complete get added to our mental sort of to-do list. So, of course, the list of things we didn't do is usually much greater than the things we did do, right? There's only so much time in the day or in our lives. And it's easier to imagine all the things we could have done. So that list is always going to be longer. And I know when I've looked back on my 58 years on earth so far, I've had to face a lot of regrets, paths I didn't take, opportunities I missed, relationships I messed up. So I wanted to actually bring it to life today by giving you some real life examples of my regrets. So I wish I'd taken a gap year after high school to discover sort of who I was and what I really wanted for myself. I wish I had gotten help for my anxiety, my body dysmorphia, and my eating disorder sooner. I wish I had gone to a much smaller liberal arts college. I wish I had pursued medicine or psychotherapy as professions. I wish I hadn't married my first husband out of fear of being alone. I wish I had dealt with my family of origin issues before I had kids. I wish I hadn't let my anxiety drive my parenting. And I think I wish I had invested in my friendships more consistently. So, and that's just a few examples. So just to give everybody a taste of, what kinds of things might you regret? Those are mine. And I have a laundry list. So that's just some of them to give you a little flavor of a real person's regrets in midlife. Those are the ones I'm tackling.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of what you're talking about, this sort of looking back and thinking, I wish I had done this, I wish I had done that differently, that's very similar to what happens in grief a lot of the time.
Yes. Yeah. So that's, from your perspective. And I mean, I think we are, that is the work to do is how do you grieve? How do you heal from these regrets? Right. And how do you grieve regrets? I mean, regrets, things you didn't do. I mean, there's a loss there.
Right. Exactly. A loss there. So how would you advise people then? Like, what top tips would you give for people coming to terms with regrets in midlife? Or how would you consciously grieve these regrets? Right.
Well, that's why I love the word conscious grief, because I think that's exactly the work we need to do. And in thinking about this, I've been doing a deep dive into regret. I would say there's probably three, I don't even know if there's steps really. There's three things to think about, right? First is leaning into forgiveness. Accept, as we talked about, that your experience is part of being human, and you could actually confirm this. I'm a big fan of outing this, right? Confirm this, talk to a trusted friend, not just anybody, but somebody you really trust about your regrets. And my bet is that a good friend will share hers too. So you can see this is a universal experience we all have. And there's a wonderful unburdening that comes with sharing in this way. So I'm going to, encourage you to do that because it's amazing to learn that we're not alone, right? Instead of just keeping it to ourselves, to really put it out there with somebody we trust and learning, okay, this is part of being human because my friend also has regrets, right? And it's important to find new understanding as part of this process of forgiveness, because berating ourselves around our regrets is only going to make us feel miserable. It's really just going to keep us stuck. So the question to ask is, what did you not know? Who could you not be when you made a decision that you now regret? How did you do the best you could given the situation that you were in at the time? And this is a great topic to maybe journal about, talk with a therapist or a coach about, to really come to greater awareness and self-compassion, honestly, so you can begin to forgive yourself. And on the flip side, if you were the cause of breaches or hurt feelings in relationships, it's never too late to own up to your actions, to ask for forgiveness. And I'm just going to give a little reminder of what a good apology is. It begins with, I'm sorry. It includes expressing remorse, but also admitting responsibility, acknowledging the negative impact that you had, making amends, and promising to do better in the future. So that's the first of three sort of processes or experiences I'm going to ask you to do. And that's that leaning into that forgiveness, self-forgiveness, most importantly, honestly. The second one is to learn from your regrets. For each of your regret, I'm going to suggest you ask yourself, what meaning can I make of this regret? Specifically, what good, if any, came out of this regret, even if it's just that you learned you're a survivor, that you're resilient. Maybe this regret taught you something about yourself. What could that be? Maybe it taught you something about the people around you or your world. And maybe you learned that back then when it happened, or even just now looking back? And then how did this regret change you? What does this regret allow you to be and to do now and moving forward? So that's the second piece, is really kind of taking stock and learning from, what did this regret teach me? And then the third piece is really putting your regrets to work for you. Because the honest truth is your regrets are an amazing guide to what really matters to you, what you value most in your life. What are your regrets trying to tell you? How can you take the lessons your regrets have taught you to create a better future for yourself? Maybe one where you show up authentically in your life beginning today and put your dreams front and center. And an exercise I'd love for you to do is to imagine yourself in 10 years and to ask yourself, if I haven't done X or addressed Y, I will regret it. Like, just get real with yourself. Then figure out what you can do to prevent that future regret. It's the harnessing your regrets into conscious action. So instead of getting caught up in the coulda, woulda, shoulda, think, you know what, maybe I can still do or be whatever. It's not too late. I really am a big fan of it's just never too late. So those are the 3 steps I'm suggesting, is leaning into forgiveness, learning from your regrets, and putting your regrets to work for you.
I love that. It's very, very clear. I was thinking, do you have either a personal example or an example perhaps from one of your clients that you could, demonstrate about this process? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I would love to do that. One example I brought up before, and I'm going to use an example about myself because I'm so much more attuned to this process, in terms of something real that I've struggled with, is one of my biggest regrets is that I did not take a gap year between high school and college. So I'll give you a little background on that. I was very immature and insecure at 17 years old, and I was going to be going to Duke University, which is a very large college where work hard and play hard is kind of the name of the game. I was really anxious about leaving home. And honestly, I chose Duke because my older brother went there. It was like a piece of home at the school. I developed anorexia and then bulimia freshman year at Duke. I joined a sorority because I thought that was the only way to have a social life. And it had kind of been ingrained in me that Greek life was really important. I ended up neglecting my studies, and I found very little joy in learning. So I have a lot of regret about what happened as a result of me showing up at university, not in a very good place for me to really take full advantage of the opportunity. And I wish I'd taken that gap year to give myself a chance to learn healthy ways to deal with my anxiety, to figure out who I was and what I wanted out of my education and also my future, and to choose the right college experience for me. And when I play the what if game, I easily can start ruminating, those endless thoughts you get. If only I'd waited a year, I would have had a chance to mature, to get healthy, learn how to show up for myself, to speak my voice, I would have had a clearer sense of identity and a greater courage to really explore my interests. So that's the background on me and the choice I made. So the 3 steps I suggest in order to come to terms with this regret, now let me apply that to them. First one was lean into forgiveness. So when I think about my situation at 17, I can see there was really no way I'd ever have even considered taking a gap year, right? That's me in retrospect, thinking that would have been the great solution. I didn't even know about gap years back then. I mean, we're talking 1981. It was a very uncommon thing to do in the US. I know it's a much more of a tradition in Europe and certainly in the UK, but it's a much more recent phenomenon here. Second, I would have felt like a failure if I hadn't gone straight from high school to college. There's a lot of pressure just to, keep going, keep charging up that hill. And was the expectation I believed I had. I didn't have the awareness at all that I was living my life so unconsciously and really ruled by fear. I mean, I now understand that's how I was living, but back then I did not consciously understand that. I felt the fear. I remember being very anxious, but I stuffed it down, too ashamed to even acknowledge it to myself. Never reached out for help because that would also have meant failure. I got to like keep up the facade, focused on being perfect. And a gap year did not fit with the image that I was so keen on preserving. So I feel a lot of sadness now thinking about that young girl. And I'm really extend her compassion and forgiveness, understanding that she did the best she could at the time. So that's how I've really leaned into that first step of forgiveness. The second step is learning from your regrets. So when I look at the silver lining in this regret, did anything good come out of me going when I did and going to Duke? And I realized I did make some wonderful girlfriends at Duke. I have some wonderful memories of social times there, especially dancing to Motown music at parties. I really liked dancing. This regret has also taught me how much I suffer when I live according to other people's expectations of me. And when I would say sort of sell my soul in the hope of feeling worthy, and it's really a losing battle. So I feel like there was a lot of learning that comes to me when I think about what I went through and the choice I made. And then thirdly, putting my regret to work for me, I am now committed to putting myself out into the world authentically, warts and all, to making my dreams and desires the priority. That's why if you subscribe and you read my emails, you'll see I am very brutally honest about the stuff that goes on in my life. You really get the unvarnished truth of my experience. And in the work I do in my membership, you'll get a front row seat to this is why I'm called to empower women to own their voices and create their best lives. So I feel like I am taking that one regret and the rest of my regrets and trying to sort of make lemonade out of lemons, if you will, and sort of changing the narrative for myself and allowing myself to make something better out of my, misgivings and my regrets about the past. And, that's the work I encourage everybody to do, is to make sense out of your regrets and to learn from them and to make them work for you, really harness them for you. Because, I guess if I had to give a bottom line, it would be, do not let your regrets define your past, but use them, embrace them to design your future. And I think that's the sweet spot of how regrets can turn out to be, something you can make the most of. It's never fun to deal with regrets, but they can empower you to do things differently, give you that confidence to do things differently.
And while you were speaking, I was thinking from your own experience and people that might be listening to this, I think one of the common areas that come up for women who are plus 40, who've had children, and then their children get to an age where they're leaving home, and there's a loss of identity there.
Mm-hmm.
That you've spent the last 18 years raising your children and they don't need you anymore. And there's a big hole there.
Yeah.
That's been your identity for so long. What advice would you give those ladies in particular?
That's such a great question, because there is a lot of loss that comes with not just your kids are leaving home, but it is a loss of identity. Like if you have thought of yourself primarily, even if you've been working outside the home, but if you've thought of the joy and purpose in your life as primarily coming from being a mother, and then your kids walk out, as they're supposed to, that you did your job well. It's like, it's very affirming to have your kids launched and feel like, okay, like this is the path. This is what they're supposed to be doing. But then where does that leave you, right? Where does that leave your sense of self, capital S self? And that's a very challenging time for a lot of women who now have to come to terms with, well, wait a second, I'm, 50, 55, 60, whatever, and for some younger, and I'm still vibrant. I'm intelligent. I've got things to contribute. I have many productive years ahead of me. yet what do I do with them? Like there's a feeling of being unmoored, of feeling lost, without that tethering piece of being a mother. And my advice to these women is to, and it's a big shift, is to ask them to put yourself first, because for so long you have been taking care of others, caregiving as your priority. And it's not natural for us to do this for ourselves, but it is, I encourage all these women to say, okay, I have done for everybody else, and now it's my turn. It's my turn to decide what I want for myself. Who am I? And it's oftentimes we might discover that we're very different people than we thought we were, or than we were in a previous life before kids, or even than we were as mothers. And it's a very different feeling to say, I'm going to be a little selfish, and I deserve it. I deserve to say, this is my time. What do I want to do? What do I want to do with the decades ahead of me? Because for most of us, there are decades ahead of us. We have a very long span of life now. And to do that kind of introspection, to go inward, but also to go outward and explore. Just open it up, explore anything you want. I've always wondered about belly dancing. I've always wondered about, whatever it is that floats your boat. Take some time. You may probably, many of us will still be working, but what do you want to do in your free time? What is it? I want to go learn something new, or I want to go try something different, or I want to, I feel like I want to meet new women to be my people, like I'm not satisfied in some of my relationships. And sometimes the mothers of your kids' friends may have served a purpose and been a really great group of friends in the day, but maybe, without the kids around, it's just not the same kind of connection. And I want to connect on a different level. And so that's why I love trying different things, different activities, because you will find women, and I'm focused on women because I'm very big on women's communities. You will find other women who are curious and trying new things too, and you'll gravitate toward them, and you'll find that connection there. So it's really about going inward and going outward, and that's the advice I give to these women. Put yourself first, do the introspective work, but then try things. There's no commitment. You don't have to be the best belly dancer. You don't have to be, but just try it out and see what floats your boat. Like, this is an amazing time for exploration and for freedom. So take advantage of it. Like, to make the most of this time for you, because there is a new freedom in not, waiting, staying up at night, wondering when your, teenager is coming home, and if you're going to hear that door open or not, and having, in a weird way, like once they're away, it's like, stuff is going down, they're like doing crazy stuff, whatever. But when you're not waiting for them to come home or have constant access to them, there's a lot of that can just be put aside now. It's their lives and their journey. And what's your journey? What are you about now?
Yeah, I think that's such a key thing, to remind some women that it's your time, and that's a very liberating feeling, hopefully.
Yes. It's scary too. I mean, it can be scary, right? Yeah. Because to have a blank slate is nearly, if you've neglected yourself for so long, then suddenly there's like this, all these possibilities are open to you. It can be a little off-putting, like this too much choice, too much possibility. So it's really it's really important to just baby steps. Just try this week, try that, make a, coffee day, like small things, and then just see what happens. Trust the process. Like, I just really believe if you're putting yourself out there, and really tuning into yourself, and boy, I really enjoyed that class, or I really didn't, or that coffee was great, but this, just really being conscious of what you're feeling in the moment when you're going on these little adventures for yourself. It's a different form of self-care. It's really taking care of your soul.
Yeah. Yes. And I think so many you know, we're very used to hearing the word self-care or self-love nowadays, but that it is a new concept, really. Like you're saying, in 1981, people weren't really taking gap years. You know, people were talking about like self-love and self.
No. Right.
And everybody gets on the, like, this is what I've got to do. This is the program.
Yes.
People go to university, get this job, find the husband.
Yes.
Children,
Yes.
blah, blah, blah. You know, you've never really thought much about, like you say, who am I? What makes me happy? And what gives me joy? And I am going to stop being on the treadmill that I've been on. And
yeah, we are so programmed, aren't we? I mean, I feel like, and I'm so in awe of many young people these days who don't feel bound to that linear path, who are able to say, yeah, I don't really like that job. I'm going to stop. I'm going to go back to school, or I'm going to do this or whatever. I feel like there's not as much pressure to, you know, get that 40-year job that you're going to get the gold pen and then be like, I'm retiring now. I mean, it's just a very different dynamic today. And I mean, I'm a little jealous. I think but I'm so glad to see that this, you know, that there is more flexibility now in the pathway. And if there's something positive that's come out of COVID, is I think, young people have started to say, and others too, like, oh, I look at their jobs more flexibly, or, oh, I can do this job from there, or I can, you know, it's not people who were kind of in silos. This may have opened up possibilities for them at any age. And I just love to see that. Yeah,
I know it is. It's changing rapidly, for sure. And as you said, people's, you know, life expectancy is potentially a lot longer, and people are still fit and vibrant, and there's many years left ahead of them. But at the same time, as you say, it can be liberating, but it can also be scary, which is why someone like yourself can, you know, provide a community and a support for people who are in that place at the moment. And I know that you have a free gift for our viewers, so I was just wondering if you could tell us about that.
Yeah, so I'm sharing a tool that I recommend to all my clients and members. It's the Midlife Reenergizer Tracker, and it's really all about optimizing your energy. Because when you discover what energizes you and what drains you, you've got this amazing new awareness. And then you're able to prioritize sort of those energy boosting activities and situations and people in your life. So all the instructions are in my free gift, and I hope you will download it. And I know you'll have the link for the viewers.
Absolutely. And how else can the viewers connect with you, Hélène?
Well, I'd love for you to visit my website. It's helenetstelian.com. And you can learn about my Thrive Personal Growth community, which is exclusively tailored for women in midlife and beyond. I've added a way for you to join free now and enjoy monthly expert workshops tailored to your needs. And on my website, there's also another free gift I give that's available there. It's a video series called 5 Musts to Thrive in Your Next Chapter. And I invite you to join my Facebook group, Empowering Women in Midlife, which is a really engaged group of 2,600 women who are 40 and older. And we've got some great conversations going there too. So I would love to see you in any of my communities.
Amazing. That all sounds amazing. Thank you so much, Hélène. Is there anything else that you'd like to share before we finish?
You know, no, I'm just hoping that everybody takes this time for them, honestly, and it's just, it is such a wonderful opportunity in midlife that we have. And while there are a lot of challenges that come with this time of life, I really view it as a huge opportunity to create the rest of your life. So I am very enthused about midlife as a wonderful time to take stock and to design the life you want. So that's my encouragement to everybody out there. And I so appreciate you inviting me to be on this amazing series. And I think it's your third one, right? So yeah, it's been It's such a joy listening to all these different perspectives on grief and being conscious about grieving. And they're just wonderful experts that you've brought on. And I really appreciate your leadership.
Oh, thank you so much, Hélène. Well, I'm so glad that we met. We've stayed in contact, and here we are. That's really wonderful. Yeah. Thank you, everybody who's been watching and listening. I hope you've enjoyed this interview, and don't forget to check out Hélène's page. Bye.
Bye.